Supposed to go, they're coming in, but they want us to. It needs to be done, but.
Let's call this meeting to order tonight for, zoning and planning meeting. Need to take a roll call.
Debbie Murphy, planning and zoning.
Ryan Singing, planning and zoning.
Ed Wilson, planning and zoning.
I'm sure it's planning and zoning.
All right.
Nate Birchwood is absent.
Nate Purcell is absent. He couldn't make it tonight. If we could all stand to the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first I need to get a motion to, approval of the minutes from the previous meeting,
What minutes were those?
the ones from the joint. When we had that joint. City council.
I don't remember any.
You have the minutes in there?
I didn't read them.
No, I
I didn't get an agenda before this night.
Yeah.
I didn't see anything out of order when we got them that night.
You guys are gonna have to table it if you guys don't have.
We'll
it.
table,
I haven't had a chance
so
to read
we'll
it.
table that till next time.
Make a motion to table approval of minutes.
I will second.
Pass.
You gotta ask, you gotta vote.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passed.
Just in defense of City Hall, because this is a hearing, it wasn't necessarily a conventional P and Z meeting, that's probably why you didn't get a minute.
That's good.
There's that joint meeting
All right, we got new business tonight.
for the board.
We're referring to 209 Fifth Street. That's, you guys, okay?
We just had some questions regarding the zoning. So my understanding is it is residential, right? Okay. So wondering right now, the way it says is it's technically it's a lot and a half. That's, and on the half a lot is a garage. And so if something was to happen, say weather and garage blows down, something like that, wondering, can we repair what's there? Can we rebuild? Like, my understanding is the current zoning is anything residential has to be a house before a building.
Yes.
So, okay,
So if the structure were to blow down, you can't rebuild the structure.
Okay.
Because it's gone. You would have to make it up to the requirements of 2010 regulations. As far as repairing it, as long as the structure's still there, it can be fixed. The only way you'd be able to put a garage back there is if you got it zoned light industrial, which is a possibility based on the fact that the Alliance Communications building is light industrial. But you would have to, we don't want to just put a block, just one lot into light industrial. You'd have to go all the way from, you'd have to get the people from Alliance Communications to the north to pass, to approve, okay it, as well as the residents around there. And then by doing that there, you could put just a garage back up there on each lot or whichever based on light industrial. The reason why you don't want to just put a lot of light industrial there in residential is because in every development, if somebody buys a lot, they're gonna try to make a lot light industrial, and that's not a good practice to get into, so.
and our concern there too is there is no sewer and water, so to build a house there, I think would create a lot of problems for the person to the north.
Well, so the person to the north, there's actually water that runs from Elm Street all the way to number 54 there. There's actually a water service that runs in the ditch all the way from Elm Street to there already to feed that place.
There's a water main there.
You just gotta tap into it.
Yeah,
Correct.
you
The
just have,
sewer, there is no sewer except in Elmat.
right. So, it's short. While there's sewer,
Sewer up to here on
Yeah.
Elm, the water, we do not 100% know how far it's stubbed in there, but we just don't know how. far.
well, right now, there's just a service that got eliminated. The
Oh,
main's eliminated.
The main is eliminated.
The main goes to the north, but not to the south.
Okay, we did eliminate, I can't remember.
The only reason why I know that is because I put it in, but
I
that,
can't remember.
so we bored a service from there up to property number 54 there at that time. But sewer could come, you could get sewer from Elm Street, you'd have to run a service through the ditch to get to that lot. So it is feasible to get sewer there. Not idealistically, but it is feasible.
So if we wanted to go through the motions of zoning that commercial,
Not light industrial.
light industrial, sorry. Would we only need approval from, you said, from here to where we are?
Yep,
Or do we need everybody?
and the surrounding people,
Everybody adjacent to the touching?
they have the option when you put up the zoning change to, you don't necessarily have to get them to approval before you do it. But when you put your zoning notice up for 21 days, is it 21 days?
I think so.
20,
You publish it and you guys notice it for 10 days.
notice it for 10 days after you publish it for 21 days, and then they can come in to the meeting and,
I think we have another public hearing, if I remember right, with anytime.
Yes,
zoning.
yeah.
So if they want to dispute it or don't want it, that's their chance to speak up and say, hey, I don't want this in my backyard type of deal.
So what would be the first step if we would like to?
your first step would be to talk to the other landowners. That would have to connect that to the corner and get them to okay, because if they're not on board with it, then there's no point to move forward until they're willing to
And just looking at it from the outside, it would make perfect sense to zone that one light industrial too, because then it would, the building that's on it would line up with the existing zoning regulations anyways. It's not really changing anything, it's getting your ducks in a row and making sure everything lines up.
Well, the nice thing is all your neighbors are nice people.
Right, and then, yeah, if you have a letter of approval from them, that make it easier.
Yeah.
One thing with setbacks would be for light industrial, since you're abutting the residential, the setbacks will be changed or different than what it says in the book too. You'll have to, those lots, if they would, all these, they'd be changed to light industrial, they'd have different. The setbacks listed are here, but they would have other exceptions because they're abutting residential, so they'd be a little bit different. So I think like right now where your garage is sitting, rear yard, I'm just gonna go off a rear yard is 25 feet in the book now. So like yours is that close right now, it's probably 10 feet off the property. If it would be tore down, if it was in light industrial, you'd have to push it another 15 feet off your lot line. Just to come in compliance and stuff. So
Just existing though, it can stay put. because it's already there.
existing is everything.
Right. Okay.
So with the space that's there, is it an option to sell off the full lot and leave the half, whether it's
you,
residential or light industrial?
so you can sell it, it's your property, but they're bound by the restrictions on what they can build there on what the zoning is. So if it's plotted as one lot, you'd have to get it replotted to get the separation at that time. Otherwise, you have to sell it as a whole. You can't sell just half the lot without replotting it. And then if you replot it, it'll still be residential unless you get it changed to light industrial. And then that's where whoever bought it would still be bound to the same residential requirements as anybody else would be.
So if I'm hearing you right, her first step is probably to replot it. So.
Well, if they want to sell just part of it, is to make sure, well, if you plan on selling it no matter what, replot it.
And that I do with the county, right?
Yep.
Yeah, you get a surveyor, I'll get a replat.
And then-
The questions is we've had several people come to me that want to buy that lot to build just a garage.
Yeah,
So.
so, yeah, and if it's going light industrial, it's very feasible. I mean, you get approved instantly for it, but you gotta get it to that first. But to plot it, you gotta get a surveyor out there, and you don't technically go to the county, you come back to us with the plat. And then we approve the plat to get it changed into different lots, and then it goes to the county.
Believe your lot width could still be correct. They don't fall within the two.
Yeah,
area lot
just
really
what I
could be.
measured off, that it'd be for an R1, you still could build a house on it. I mean, it's, you have to depth end.
You would need a variance for lot size or anything like that.
No, they got enough room to do what they
Okay.
wanted.
But that's it. The only thing is when it brought me is just if that person is looking at building a garage on it. If they would purchase that from you, then I mean, might come back to say, well, you said we could do this, and that's why we just want to get it.
When I've had
Yeah,
people ask
that's why.
both ways, I have one entity that wants to build a house there, and I've had several people ask me about building a garage. We're just trying to cover all our bases.
And with the sewer, the city, they'd have to go to the city and get a easement deal to run the sewer service down the ditch, which wouldn't be, I mean, I don't know why anybody in the city would complain about that for the house being built, just because their sewer service is in the right of way then.
Okay.
But, it's very feasible to get sewer there from Elm Street. I mean, it's not obviously inexpensive because you're going farther and into a street, but it's feasible.
So if we did replot, then, and sold the full lot and kept the half that has the garage on it now, it would be really limited what we could do with that half lot, right?
It would be so limited
This
that
could be as is.
it would be as this forever. And if anything ever happened to the structure, the lot's not big enough to be a lot to put any building back on it.
Okay.
So you'd basically lose, unless it met the requirements, you'd basically lose the lot to dead space if anything happened to the
I
building.
mean, unless you're gonna put a house up on it, you know, cause you could, it's wide enough, you can still fit a house there, but if you're just looking to have it as just the garage there. Yeah, if you were to lose it,
That's
There
not
is
talking
no
about
space.
using the structure, because then my house is toast.
No, right?
yeah, well, I'm just going off like the old part of town, like Nidaros and, those, a lot of really narrow lots that you can still squeeze a house in per the setbacks and in side yards, stuff like that, so it just gets tight.
Would be, okay.
Yeah, but I mean, you wouldn't be totally left empty with just a blank lot you can't do anything with, but,
That's what we were afraid of, yeah.
right? I would still think you'd be able to do something, but you would have, being it's a zone residential, you would still have to do a house. Yeah, if the building was ever to go down.
And storage units would be.
Light industrial. Yeah,
We could ask like, not necessarily condos, but like a
shop condo,
duplex
a
type thing.
duplex residential house,
Yes.
that could be built there.
That could be.
That's an R2 though.
Yes.
R2 for
That's R2, but
multifamily.
Duplexes are too.
And you could get that rezoned to R2 without it, with just putting in your zoning notice on one single lot there.
Yeah, basically whoever the new owner would want to figure out what their game plan is, figure out what zoning they need, designation they need, and then come to us to figure out if that's feasible to rezone it that way, which, I mean, on a blank lot like that, usually in the past, that's always been kind of the goal is to, it's not serving any purpose right now, obviously, so it's kind of, yeah. It's kind of, I know we ran into that, yeah, so, I mean, it's,
You have a wonderful problem.
Any other questions on that?
That answers pretty much everything.
Okay,
Thank you guys for your time.
thank you.
don't be afraid to call us either, I mean, if it comes down to it, where somebody asks them oddball question, or if you don't have the answer.
You can call
always
any
reach
of
out
us.
to Any of us, and we'll get it for you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Have a great night.
Thank you.
Well, that was a good precursor to what we're about to do.
All right, so with that, there was just pretty much informational, nothing to motion or vote on, so we're gonna move on to old business with the school. Now, before we get started there, just to try to clear the air a little bit and a little bit history of why we're here and how we got to where we are with this. So, when the plans came out for bidding, I work for a company that bids projects, obviously, so I got to see the plans before the plans for the new school with the site utilities, the locations and everything, and when I seen that, with knowing what that property was zoned as and Bulldog Avenue is a city street, makes it fall underneath ordinances that were wrote in 2010, which the original school was there at the time, and they did add on to it a little bit, I think in 2012, or was it six? So that was before it too then. So, okay, so, in 2010, when the zoning regulations were wrote, they should have changed them to allow the school to be the way it was, which would have solved all the problems and put it into accordance with the regulations. So with that being said, I contacted Ryan and talked to him about this back before. Then I called Deb, the mayor, and talked to, Nate Versoda and Brian McGreevy about options to make it correct. And then that's when the city reached out to the school and had that meeting with the school to propose a couple options to try to make it quicker, easier, because usually to change the zoning takes a couple months. Well, that obviously affects the school, and we tried to do that before they came in to get the permit to try to help the process along to keep the schedule. So
So the city never got plans. It was just lucky that you saw plans.
we would have never had the plans. Nobody from ARC Inc. or the school ever brought the plans to the city to look at prior to, well, until I had them actually, and then we contacted the school and the people, so then that's where the ball got rolling. So that's just a little bit of history on why we're here tonight for the school issue, is to help out to get it so that we can get the school going and get everything squared away. And make the existing building within regulations also. So, Ryan, where did Ryan go to?
Ryan, you're up.
Sorry.
Oh, you're up to do your,
I-
what you sent
the
to the
letter
school.
that I sent to the school, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, with this, as you can all see, just the way the lot lines and everything, that, this is it, you know, the school was probably built, like, the way it looks in talking to everybody. The main structure was built, Bulldog Avenue wasn't there, it was added later, so then, like I was saying, it was put out of compliance when we had our regulations. So then with this, it was just a couple different options of trying to make it simple and fast. I know one of them, option one was what we are proposing and everybody's kind of agreed to do right now. Option two was to vacate Bulldog Avenue. Option three was the worst, which I think was to redraw and put everything into compliance per what the district says, our zoning district says. So we're to this point right now, just trying to make everything into compliance. So any future, anything being done, will not come into effect with this. I know with the plans that I think were shared with us, there's future additions, which will be on the rear and to the side, so they'll still never be, abutting their, property lines or setbacks, so that everything's fine. So this is just kind of a quick and clean way to get everything cleaned up. With the, and it's in your guys, it's what I've talked to with CCOG, and it's kind of showing with this paperwork, it's adjusting the front yard to 0, which is meaning the school district or any school could build right on their front property line in the NRC, district. And then the second page would be for the hard surface parking, which then we actually just, with talking to CCOG, they just put it that the authorized official can approve the traffic count for the off-street parking. So it, make it still conform, but if there is a 2 lots, which the school has with the elementary and then the high school, and everything could be into compliance on that point. So that's what we are talking about today.
Was there one for perpendicular parking?
That is a whole nother thing, 'cause that's going to be with, that it's going to be, if you guys want to make a recommendation, it's on Bulldog Avenue. So per the plans that the school district is going with, they will have perpendicular parking on the south side here. The north side will be through traffic, so there will be no parking from along Bulldog Avenue up until they're probably their point where they actually do park now, just to keep the traffic flow. But that is wrote in our ordinance book. It's not anything to do with our zoning regulations.
Gotcha.
So that is 7205 parallel parking and angle parking. And with this one, you guys can make a recommendation still, but I think it still goes directly to this city council on this one.
Yep.
Because it's all vehicles parked within the city shall be parallel parked with the following exceptions, which are hereby designated as angle parking, which we know it's not always angle parking, it is Second Street and St. Olaf. So these are the only streets that are allowed per our ordinances.
Gotcha.
So if you put parallel parking on the north side, it's not gonna be wide enough between the ramp?
Correct,
Okay,
correct. It's just for better traffic flow.
okay.
And it gets pinched a little bit more than what it is, right? Well, it'll actually be better with, right now, there's perpendicular on both sides.
Right,
Really,
right.
it's pinched, this will actually create a better traffic.
Because that's the narrow one is right by the ramp.
Yep.
Yeah,
That'll flow excellent.
So my recommendation is to approve the changes to our regulation, planning and zoning regulation book. To change the front yard setback and then also to change the off-street parking.
Now, is there any public comment on that issue?
Yeah, this is a hearing, so anybody at this point is, they need it.
Any questions or further clarification or anything? All right, then, need somebody make a motion to approve the ordinance changes?
I will make a motion to approve the amendments to the two ordinances. You want to do the recommendation on a separate?
You want to do them separately?
Oh, yeah.
We can do them separately.
Okay, yeah,
Make a motion to approve the amendments to the two ordinances to accommodate the school needs.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all those opposed? All right, motion passed to adjust the ordinances. Now, I would also like to make a recommendation to the city council to approve the, is that?
P and Z, not city council.
Oh, no.
Oh, I'm
No,
sorry. I
no,
misheard you.
I want to
I
make
gotcha.
a
Yep, yep,
recommendation to the city council to approve the perpendicular parking on Bulldog Avenue. Get that extended to add Bulldog Avenue with St. Olaf and Second Street as perpendicular parking.
I will make a motion to send that to council for approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all those opposed? Motion passed.
And then for March 28th will be the first reading of these ordinances with the city council at 6 p.m. So there won't be any voting or anything on that. It's just a first reading. The second reading will be April 4th, and that's when the vote will take place on those ordinances. And then from that point, they will get published in our legal paper, which will be, I think, this 7th, it'll go out. That's the start of the 20-day rescission period that anybody could do a referendum to. But, like I said before, we're all in favor of this, so I can issue a building permit, but this is where I kind of said before, for a full scale construction, unless someone would object to it. And then at that point, within that 20 days, if someone would object to it, then it would have to be a stop work.
And that referendum is citizen initiated. That
Right.
isn't anything the council does. That's if a group of citizens decide to sign a petition and say, no, we don't want these changes to happen, just to be clear about the process.
Yep.
This was the fastest way we could find to get everything back into proper ordinances.
Yeah.
Yep,
On behalf of the district, I'd like to thank Brian for coming up with these good options for us that will work well and not going to slow down construction. Thanks to planning and zoning and the city council for working with us and approving that or going through the process. Appreciate that.
perfect, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
We're all very excited, Bob.
Yeah, let's get it started.
All right, we will adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.